Hello and welcome to Surprise We Both Love Movies. This week we'll be reviewing Tom Hanks' newest movie, News of the World, also starring Helena Zingel. News of the World is basically a story of a ex-Confederate captain. His name is Captain Kidd. And so in the 1800s when this story takes place, he's roaming around southern parts of Texas, and he's going around from town to town. He's delivering the news from various newspapers, and he reads these news stories to the town folk for a dime at a time. And so he goes through and he reads this, and then all of a sudden he's leaving town. And he stumbles upon this broken wagon, and all of a sudden he realizes, oh wait, you know what? I think he hears something, and he goes out and he finds out that there's this little girl that has been a part of whatever happened here at this broken down wagon. And he befriends her. He gets him to trust her, and then he kind of pulls her away. And then you kind of see that he's trying to figure out how to get this girl to her family, and kind of what the trials and tribulations of doing that are going to be. And they kind of, like I said, develop a bond, and you kind of see the kind of situations in the 1800s and how, every town is going through this crisis in the sense that, the North has just won the Civil War, and there's a lot of angst and anger and frustration, and it just trickles and just spreads out throughout the whole town in various ways. And you see Union soldiers throughout the South in every situation, even though there's all this frustration and anger throughout the movie. So why don't you take it kind of from there?
So I think one thing you forgot to mention is that this girl is not an Indian. She's not a Native American.
Right.
So he's got to figure out what's going on, and that's what the movie is, trying to get her to her family. And I'm not going to talk about what happens in the film because there are a lot of little events that happen in this movie, and yeah, I thought it was entertaining. But for me, it was kind of a failed message or a failed story. I got to the end and I walked away feeling very empty.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were trying to convey emotion, I didn't find the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what they were trying to go for, but the music didn't match the epicness of what the film was trying to convey.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to cram what should have been a very emotional story into 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
with all these different events when they really needed to. It should have been a mini series, like a 10-part mini series, because what they're trying to accomplish from the beginning of the movie to the end, it didn't get me there.
What do you think they were trying to accomplish?
They were trying to get you to feel. I can't say what happens at the end because
I got you. But what did you think that they were trying to move you towards?
They wanted you to feel that compassion at the end, and I didn't feel it. What happened was expected to happen. The music was not up to par with a story of this kind of telling. And this is a movie that James Horner should have scored. And to give you an idea of what I mean by that, James Horner was able to take boring content and make it exciting. If you watch a movie like Searching for Bobby Fischer, which is about chess.
I love that movie.
It's amazing. But if you take the music out and you watch it without the music track, it's super ridiculously boring. He can get you to feel something during the film. And since he passed away, 3 years ago, he died in a plane crash. Mm-hmm. There are several movies I've seen where I said he would be scoring that film and it would have benefited the movie. This is one of those movies that did not have the score to match what they were trying to tell with the story. So
here's what I think. Here's what I think they were trying to say, and it took me a minute too, because I think initially after the movie ended, I just watched it tonight. By the way, you can go to the movies. I was the only person in the movie theater, so there is an opportunity. Don't feel like you can't go to the movies. Just make sure you go at the right time. So I watched it tonight, and I kind of felt that same way, but then I kind of started to let it kind of just wash over me and say, hey, what was this director trying to say in this movie? And it wasn't easy to kind of pull at first because it's very linear and you feel like you kind of know what's going to happen and certain things. So there's always something, a little bit of intrigue, a few things that you don't expect to happen. But I really think what this movie is titled and what the director's trying to say is, it's so important, like in times of trouble or in times of your life, things are very, bad things are going to happen to you. And really, your story is so important to who you are. And this guy goes from town to town delivering that news. And you see how he delivers that news. It's not just, here's the news, I'm going to read it off the page. He has to make it entertaining. He has to make it something that people want to come and hear. So that not only that it's just the news, but it's also to kind of see a little bit of entertainment in a time where it's maybe not some, there's no radio, television or anything like that. So he tries to kind of drum up the news a little bit to just make it a little bit more fascinating, a little bit more interesting. And he really reads the crowd and how he decides how he's going to deliver the news. And you really think about it, in that time after the Civil War, you're in the South, people are frustrated, and you have to deliver more news of how you've lost, how things haven't gone well. And he really doesn't talk about this big thing in the fact that the South lost the Civil War. He goes from town to town. He's talking about all these little other towns and situations that are going on with them, because at the end of the day, people don't want to be reminded of the frustrations that they feel. They don't want to be reminded of the horrors and the things of their past that have been negative. They want to go and see something and hear something that's going to lift them up. And that we all inherently have a desire to hear good news as opposed to just whatever the news is. We want it to make us feel better. And I think that's kind of what this movie is trying to say, is that, you know what? Yeah, there's news and we all have our stories and we all have our heartaches, but inherently we all want to hear the news that makes us feel the best. And I think that's what the movie kind of said to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. If that's what they were trying to go with it, again, I still think they failed in getting the message across to a degree. I would like that to be the message, but I'm not sure that's definitively what they were trying to say. And if they were going to go that route, they should have cast John Krasinski to do it.
Why is he the linchpin for that message?
He does the good news through the whole COVID thing. He's got this web series where he's been delivering good news every week in this massive web series that is hugely popular. And if that's what it was, it should have been him. And he can actually convey more with his face and his facial features and his body movements than I think most actors can. So I would have rather seen him in that role if that's the message they were going for. But Tom Hanks did a great job. I mean, there was nothing to hate in the film.
No.
But, as a movie, I would have to give this a 5, just straight down the middle. I walked away with no feeling one way or the other. I almost felt like I'd wasted my time. It's like you mentioned when we talked about reviewing this, it's got a terrible name. It doesn't scream blockbuster. They're not really promoting the film. I just didn't feel fulfilled when I left this. I could take it or leave it. There's nothing to hate, but again, there's nothing to champion, I think.
Right. What was your film score?
So my film score on this again would be a 5, because maybe you could get more, maybe a 6. You might be able to get more on multiple viewings. I think I'm going to do some research and find out what the director was trying to go for, because the emotion wasn't there. And that's what I was looking for with the film. I wanted to feel something, and I didn't in the end. So I really think they missed the mark. But again, I think a lot of that has to do with the music. Flat out, it wasn't epic. So what would you give it?
For me, I felt the same way. It was definitely missing something. And I would have to give it, as a movie score, I would have to give it a 6. It was close to being a 7, but it just was missing just the way that it was structured in the third act. I really just didn't bring it home for me.
Right.
As a film, I would give it a 7. I think it was trying to say something. It's not overtly clear exactly what they were trying to say. And that sometimes that's the beauty of film, is that you can, draw multiple, possibilities for what the director was trying to say or what the story's trying to tell you. And so I would give it a 7 as a possibly, it might ring true, on a repeated viewing. You might be able to get something different and might be able to extract a different point of view from it than maybe the first time you saw it. But it's nothing like overwhelming, or it's not gonna, wow, night and day difference. I saw this movie the first time and the second time it blew me away. It's not that. So
no.
I'm gonna go with a 6 as a movie and a 7 as a film.
All right. That's all we have for you guys this week. We appreciate everybody who subscribes and who's liking the videos, watching them. Please share our videos if you guys have a chance. It would help us out tremendously. You can hear our podcasts of these reviews, and those are more uncut than some of these movie reviews, but We've got those up on Spotify and on iTunes podcasts, or what are they called? Is it iTunes podcasts? Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
I always forget they change everything. Everything's individual now, so it's not iTunes anymore. So, yeah, Apple Podcasts. So we do appreciate it. And that's all we have for you guys this week. I'm Aaron Fisher.
And I'm Lamont Lovejoy.
We'll see you guys next week.